So this morning at around 9 o'clock, I was walking my dog around my block in the Yonge and Eglinton area of Toronto. As I was walking down the block, another man was coming towards me. As he was passing me, he body checked me into a wooden fence, to which I was knocked to the ground, and subsequently he yelled at me, "Fuck you, you Jew. You will never take Israel. Free Palestine."
For those of you just joining us, this is a little intro to our show this evening, which is starring Mayor Levy Weinstein. And we do have a special guest with us tonight, is Levy. As you can see her bio up on the screen there, she's a pretty impressive history of journalism and activism. And she's certainly a fearless woman who wears many hats. And I think she's an inspiration to all of us. She's made some friends. She's also made an enemy or two along the way. So it depends who you ask. Get varying opinions regarding her notoriety and her fame versus infamy. But certainly nobody could argue that she's an inspiration to journalists and Jews and everybody else who's read her 30 plus years of writings. She joins us today, particularly to share her tireless battle and experience of exposing and the striking rise in anti-Semitism, as well as the BDS movement. So without further ado, we're going to bring Mayor on the screen momentarily, where he's going to discuss this Parsha. Remember to watch us every Wednesday evening at 7:30 Toronto time, 6:30 South Texas time, where I am, and any other time where you happen to be around the world. If you're watching it during the Olympics, it's 14 hours later.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you this week. Every week we address issues that are pertinent, relevant to our community, actions that we're taking, information that we want to get across to everyone. We have wonderful guests who join us that are very knowledgeable about the topics affecting our community. It's important to get this information out. Every week before we start, I say a few words about the Parsha, the weekly Parsha that we're going to be reading in the synagogue this Shabbat. And this is Parsha's Re'eh. Let me just say before I get into this, there was a notification sent out on social media by the BDS about our show for tonight. So I expect some interesting calls to come in tonight, to say the least. And we'll see what we could do. If there's people who have an open ear and want to discuss some issues, wonderful. If there's people who want to call and just swear and complain and this and that, well, they'll be deleted. We're good at that. This week's Parsha is called Parsha's Re'eh. The Parsha starts out Re'eh, and that's a Hebrew word which means see. And it says, see, I present before you today a blessing and a curse. And it goes on what the blessings will be to Jewish people and what the curses will be to Jewish people. If they do this, that, and the other, you're going to be blessed. If you do that, you're not going to be blessed. It will not be good for you. And everything, context is very important for everything. What's going on here in this Parsha is that Moses, he's pretty much at the end of his life, and he's recounting everything to the Jewish people. And there is so much that happened after they left Egypt, in the desert, in the wilderness, their travels, and their fights, and their wars, and the infighting, and everything that went with that. And then there's going to be the last journey, crossing over into Israel under the leadership of Joshua, under Joshua. So Moses is saying, this is what you have to do. You know what happened before. You know who were false leaders. You know what the wrong path was. You know who not to trust and who not to trust. You've seen it. And today, we have serious issues right now. Every single Parsha speaks to us today. Is relevant today. There's no question about it. And when it says, see, re'eh, look, make a choice, make a decision. What path are you going to choose? Well, just the other week, there was a summit in Ottawa, an emergency summit in Ottawa on anti-Semitism. So, of course, we had organizations represented there from the Jewish community, CJA and B'nai B'rith. There's no question about it that they would be there, the UJA. Erwin Kotler, he was there to speak, but also invited to speak and make presentations was Bernie Farber. Now, that's relevant because CJA did not say a word about that, and I didn't hear anything either from B'nai B'rith about that. But we have had a series of attacks on the Jewish community in Canada, in the United States, globally, all over the world. The mantra, the slogan from BDS organizations now is to globalize the Intifada. What is the Intifada? Well, the Intifada in Israel is violence against Jews, blowing up buses, blowing up pizza parlors with Jews inside, killing Jews, knifing Jews, missiles fired at Israel from Gaza or from Lebanon, from Hezbollah, either from Hamas or from Hezbollah, a base being set up in Syria to attack Israel. And when you hear these organizations, these BDS organizations in North America or Europe chanting, we don't want two states, we want all of it. They say free Palestine, and then they also say globalize the Intifada. And we see the violence going on. Just last week, there was a Jewish man, and he's going to join us tonight as well, Sam Brody. He was attacked in Toronto, in the area of Yonge and Eglinton. The attacker, the anti-Semite, BDS supporter, swore at him, "You effing Jew, free Palestine." He saw a kippah on his head, knocked him to the ground, and that's what he said to him. We have an attorney in New York City having a rally, a BDS rally outside the home of a Jew who is planning to move to Israel. She supports Hamas. There's a whole bio on her statements. Standing outside the home, calling him a European colonialist. You see, the BDS, they deny the Holocaust as well. They call the Jews who moved to Israel white Europeans. White Europeans. Let's see. Yes, we should play this video. if we have this video, our doctor in the studio has a video to show just what this lawyer was doing.
I'll have it momentarily. Just keep talking, and you'll know when it's on because you'll see it.
Okay, so that is what's going on. So when the Parsha says, see, I give to you a choice. You do this, you're going to be blessed. You do that, you're not going to be blessed. The exact opposite. Let's make the right moves. And let's reject those who try to represent us and do not represent us at all.
Here
When
goes
Bernie
Mary's video.
says it was not anti-Semitic, he doesn't believe it was anti-Semitism, or he does not see that there's evidence of an anti-Semitic attack at Yonge and Eglinton. What's he doing in Ottawa? Trying to represent the Jewish community. That's what Bernie Farber said. There is nothing in this story that suggests an anti-Semitic motivation. What am I missing? And he's going to be in Ottawa representing the community? CJ can't be silent.
So, as everybody can see, we're standing outside of the home of a New Yorker. By all measures, we can see that this looks like a fine home. It looks like a lovely home. So we must question what is wrong in New York that somebody would leave this perfectly fine, actually well-maintained, middle-class home in New York to go and invade Palestinian homes, to go and engage in the genocide and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians thousands of miles away. What is happening in New York is not an anomaly. What is happening in New York is being allowed to happen because our communities in the West, in the US, in Canada, and in Europe especially, have been normalizing the right of Europeans to travel to Palestine, to commit war crimes and crimes against humanity with wholesale impunity. And worse over, while we normalize this ethnic cleansing, while we normalize these crimes and these criminals like Yaakov Fauci in our communities. We say that the day has ended for when Zionists and Israelis and Americans and New Yorkers can go to Palestine without being exposed, without being held to account, without being made to pay for their crimes and made to leave Palestine. We also saw what was wrong in New York when we saw de Blasio and Long Island County officials like Blakeman and Laura Curran exhorting our communities to criminalize and punish an ice cream company, Ben & Jerry's, for merely partially abiding by international law and leaving stolen Palestinian land. We saw de Blasio and Curran and Blakeman implement executive orders demanding that Palestinians and those who speak on Palestine.
That's a little bit about Ben & Jerry's, ultimate hypocrites. That's what the BDS is. Hyper-focused about Israel and Jews. Well, they don't consider us Jews. White European colonialists, that's what they call us. And they'll give you the title of Jewish if you are Neturei Karta or something like that, or Jewish Voice for Peace, if you are adopting the anti-Semitic line and backing Iran in their quest to destroy Israel. We have Sue-Ann Levy with us. We have Sam Brody with us. We have Ron East with us. I'd like to bring on Sue-Ann Levy right now. We could bring everybody on. Also, we're going to be discussing all these issues. But Sue, you've been very involved on a lot of fronts about the BDS. But one thing in particular that I thought I could ask you about is the TDSB. So there was a teacher, you wrote about a particular teacher that wanted BDS material, anti-Semitic material being taught into the schools. There was no sanctions taken by the TDSB against this teacher. And I want to ask you if you could give some background about that and some context about that. But also, I have found that there are a number of important Islamic organizations that would like to see this being into all the schools, anti-Israel BDS.
Yeah, well, his name was Javier de Villa, and he was an equity worker employee in the gender violence unit. It was just a crazy title for a crazy unit, but that's the Toronto District School Board for you. So I got a tip from a Jewish teacher that he had issued not one, but two manuals, two resources, 60 pages long each, to teachers on a list of teachers who had signed up for his stuff, his propaganda. This was happening during the latest conflict. The two manuals were issued on May 16th, May 19th, and he called them carefully curated. Well, these carefully curated manuals contained, Palestinian, it was totally biased towards the Palestinians, but worse than that, it contained references to books for children that stereotyped Israeli soldiers as murderers and settlers as thieves. It also it gave an entire section to teachers on how to teach the BDS movement, how to teach it to children. And it also provided a list, this is his carefully curated resources, a list of books that teachers should read, some of them by terrorists, known terrorists, including Leila Khalid. So, I mean, it was, in my view, virulently anti-Semitic. And it got out to this list of teachers. I found out the school board put him on home assignment, which is tantamount to paying him to sit at home. He continued to tweet nonstop, really anti-Israel messages. He had the backing of all the unions, the usual suspects, CUPE, CUPW. They put out a petition. Basically, I was with the Toronto Sun then, talking about our rabid right-wing newspaper and me being a rabid right-wing journalist. Nobody should believe. This is how they try to intimidate you into silence. And there were overtones of anti-Semitism in the petition as well. The guy was on home assignment for about a month and a half, and then quietly returned to his duties a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw that. In fact, I followed his Twitter account, and he retweets people who believe Israel should be eliminated.
Well, worse than that, he actually, while he was on home assignment, basically being paid to sit and do nothing, he curated, again, a list of people to speak at similar to this, a Facebook town hall, and all of them were virulently, they're academics. And one was a member of Jewish Voice for Peace, or Independent Jewish Voices, an Israel hater, one of those self-loathing Jews. And they went off for about an hour and a half, just talking nonstop, drivel about Israel, lies. And I mean, I forced myself to listen, but it was really hard.
Right. I mean, can you imagine that we've had the most recent attack, Sam Brody, who's going to be on in a moment to describe what happened. But can you imagine kids being taught this anti-Semitic BDS hate in the schools?
Well, he tried to protect himself in his manuals by including a chapter on anti-Semitism, but it was anti-Semitism from the view of the Jewish Voices for Peace. Jewish Voices for Peace wouldn't know anti-Semitism if it hit them over the head. They're all self-loathing Jews. They're all pro-Palestinian. They think that they can criticize Israel, but that doesn't make them a self-loathing Jew. I mean, basically, all these people run under cover of, we're just criticizing Israel, we're just against Zionists, we'd have nothing against any of you Jews. But we know that anti-Zionism is the new face of anti-Semitism. We all know that.
It's just like years ago when I was a kid, the they were teaching it widely in churches and that Jews killed Christ, and Jewish kids were being attacked. You killed Christ.
Mhm.
Now, yeah, I mean, go figure that. You say Jews killed God. How do you even exist after that then? But I mean, it was violent, and today Jews are committing genocide against the Palestinians. Israel is an apartheid state, and meanwhile, there's Arabs all over the place in Israel serving as judges. And do we
Yeah,
have to
they
explain
don't
it?
even, you know what, Meyer, they don't even know what they're talking about, because
Yeah.
I would say 90% of them have never been there, never seen for themselves. When I've challenged them, including Javier Davila, who had quite a coterie of followers, and they all talk about being social justice warriors, being concerned about Palestinians, being concerned about human rights abuses. They don't even know. They haven't even seen. They don't know what goes on. They have no idea about how the BDS movement has forced some businesses out of the West Bank, like SodaStream,
Yep.
which I
Yep.
wrote about a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
They don't do their homework. Most of them are highly indoctrinated. And I would dare say this Javier Davila wouldn't even know. I mean, this is how they pinkwash all of this stuff. This is how they like, I don't know how their mindset works, but he's talking about human rights abuses in Gaza and the West Bank. I kept saying to him, well, go over there. You're a queer Latina transformer. Go over there and protest. They'll throw you off the roof in no time. One of the roofs.
Right.
And they don't want to even think. I mean, it's like right brain, left brain don't connect.
Right. Okay, so we have Sam Brody that could explain to everyone what happened. We also have Ron East, who's going to be joining us as well, that could really go on that topic about self-loathing, like people in our community that Jewish Voice for Peace, Independent Jewish Voices, if not now, those who joined the BDS that want Israel destroyed. So we'll be getting into that as well. But if Sam could explain to our viewers and everyone what happened. There's a lot of people trying to call. I'm just going to say right now, we're not taking calls right now. We have some information. And maybe in another 10, 15 minutes or something, we'll open up the lines. But go ahead, Sam.
Sure. Thanks so much, Mayor. So I live in the Yonge and Eglinton area of Toronto. I've been generally visible Jew most of my life, wearing a kippah. Tzitzis, I don't know as much anymore. Happens to be that day I was wearing my kippah. I was going out for a walk with my dog that I normally would in the morning. As I'm walking down my block, there's a gentleman coming towards me. I don't really think much of it. I keep walking, and as he's passing me, he body checks me into the fence. I get knocked to the ground, and he goes, "You fucking Jew, you will never take Israel, free Palestine." So with that, he ran up the middle of the road. I ducked around the corner, and that was kind of the end of the incident. About an hour later, I called police, the non-emergency line. At that point, I kind of was like, at first it was just shock, and after that, I was kind of going about my normal day. I went to work afterwards. My wife's like, "You got to call the police." So I called the police, and they ended up showing up around 3 o'clock. I called CJA, B'nai B'rith, UJA, the different advocacy groups, etc. So the cop shows up around 4 o'clock. 3 o'clock, we walked through the whole incident. Detective Officer Chu, very professional, very understanding, empathetic, detailed. So I have nothing to complain from that regard. I don't want to jump on anything or anyone jump on anything I say, but and they're still currently investigating from that regard. Different advocacy and other different groups in Toronto have reached out to me to offer their different services and stuff like that. I've gotten support from a lot of different areas, different places in the world. So I'll tell you how I came to do the video, and I guess kind of why I'm sitting here, is I decided to make this Facebook video. about 3-4 hours after the incident, I thought a lot about it. I was going back and forth and back and forth, and eventually I decided to do it because I understand the apprehension of a lot of other people who don't want to come forward with these sort of stories. There's a lot of people who will call you a liar, or try to cancel you, or whatever these sort of things are. It makes it a scary idea to come out and talk about these things. So for anyone who wants to watch, it's on my Facebook page. It's available to watch. It's 2.5 minutes or so. I just wanted to do it from the least political perspective as possible. I did mention in the video that in my belief, I believe that being anti-Israel, or anti-Zionist is now the politically correct way of being an anti-Semite, and the veil that a lot of people get to hide behind to just bash on whoever they want. Like, firstly, like, that person had couldn't assume really my thoughts on Israel, because there are plenty of people who wear kippah and have very, very different thoughts on Israel than I do. But just because I wore a kippah, for him, it was a good enough reason to knock me to the ground and assume that I was like a jerk. So, my family's lived in Canada since 1880. People want to like I've had it from the other side as well. I made the point of not mentioning that he wasn't Muslim because he was wearing a large cross. So I'm going under the assumption, for a pretty good reason, that he wasn't Muslim. Nor was he white, because I don't want it to come from the other side that people see as a white supremacist, etc. It was a normal person that you would see in the city that you wouldn't assume any sort of affiliation one way or the other. So it's unfortunately very disappointing to see in a city like ours what it's come to.
Yeah, listen, it must be, there's nothing until today. There's all kinds of emotions going through you. But number one, you're the victim. And, I put out a message earlier at a meeting. We're going to be organizing definitely patrols for the community. And this is a priority. This is like phase one, and we'll take in different steps what has to be done. But we also have Ron East, so maybe we can get everybody on and we could all be discussing all these issues. Ron, how are you?
I'm great. Just listening to Suan and to Sam. I'm sorry to hear of the assault that you had to experience. Nobody should experience any kind of violence against them. I don't care if you're Jewish, Muslim, Indigenous, Christian. And this isn't, an issue of, one over the other, one better than the other. No attack should happen on any person at any time in this country for any reason. We're all Canadians, and we all came here for the belief that we want a better life for our families, for futures. That's what we come to Canada. We're not come to Canada to bring, what we had left back home, the disasters, the difficulties, the hardships, and bring them back here in order to bring the same kind of lifestyle, to a country that has welcomed us and accepted us with open arms. So first of all, on behalf of myself, the Israeli Canadian Council, and everybody at the J.ca, we stand firmly with you. We stand firmly with you, and nobody should endure what you had to endure. That's to begin with. And number two, I have endured very similar assaults in the past. I'm very vocal in my advocacy for Israel. I've been so for 20 plus years. On May 15th, just past May 15th, when the last round of fighting occurred between Israel and Hamas, I had been physically assaulted, had Israeli flags stolen and burned. We were told that our women and daughters were going to be raped in the streets, that we were going to be stabbed in the Jewish community here in Winnipeg. We had rocks pelted at us. We had water bottles pelted at us. We had smoke bombs thrown at us. Simply for holding the Israeli flag and standing proud as Zionists and Jews. Anybody who wants to tell you that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism is either, ignorant, has some kind of mental disorder, or is just, plain anti-Semite. You know, anti-Semitism was coined in Germany way back because Jew hate was too tough for people to swallow in German. It wasn't a nice term. So anti-Semitism was coined by the Germans in order to make it more of a scientific term, thus make it more palatable for the average person to accept and internalize. Same thing is happening nowadays. You know, anti-Semitism is a dirty word. So let's just send it to anti-Zionism. And by changing it to anti-Zionism, all of a sudden we've purified ourselves somehow. We've cleansed ourselves. And now we're no longer anti-Semites. When in reality, anti-Semitism, and by the way, no hyphen in anti-Semitism, it's one word, anti-Semitism. Those who hyphenate are attempting to change the word from its meaning. Because when you put the hyphen in there, you're anti-Semites. And that's what they try to make to coin the anti-Semite game, is they're saying, well, there's a hyphen there. That means we're anti-all Semites. No. When the Germans coined the term, it was coined against Jews. In fact, one of the Germans' best friends, the Nazis' best friends at the time, was the Mufti of Jerusalem. So anti-Semitism wasn't coined by the Germans for hate of Arabs. In fact, they loved the Arabs. They loved the Arabs that lived in British Mandate Palestine. They had them over, pictures, get-togethers. We can go on and on and on. One more thing I want to say, Mayor, before I let others get in. When Sue-Ann was talking about the ignorance of people not understanding genocide, ethnic cleansing in Israel, let me just give a few quick numbers here. And I know the people. I can see all the people, by the way, who are commenting. Who have no facts and have no truth. So it's all about feelings and opinions and calling people fat or ugly. It doesn't hurt me. Like. You can call whatever names you want. That people using Shad Luca's name as a fake name. It just shows you how pathetic and sad they are. They got nothing better to do than to sit there and do that kind of silliness. In any case, let's get to some facts. Israel has just increased the import of goods from Jordan from 160 million to 700 million in order to help prop up the Palestinian economy. Israel has increased the amount of Palestinian workers allowed to come into Israel by 13%. Now there's close to 200,000 Palestinians who live in the West Bank and Gaza who are allowed to come into Israel every single day to earn a living, a much higher living than they would ever earn under Palestinian control. These people work in construction, in the hotel industry, and earn a very decent living. Just yesterday, or the day before yesterday, a military doctor who was assigned to a area near Hebron was at a check stop where a Palestinian vehicle rushed in with a pregnant woman who needed to deliver. This military doctor immediately went and aided that woman, delivered the baby, saved the woman's life and the baby's life, was acknowledged for that by the Palestinians themselves. And then people will tell you the Jews and the Israelis are ethnic cleansers. It's pathetic. It's sad. Just you look at the numbers, you look at the statistics. We can go on for a whole show just with truth and facts about statistics and numbers that show that there's never been ethnic cleansing. There's never been any kind of genocide from the Israeli side. And to call for a global intifada is you're calling for genocide of the Jewish people. What else is a global intifada? When you attack a Jew wearing a kippah on the street because you're assuming he's pro-Israel, because you're assuming he's a Zionist, that is anti-Semitism. There's absolutely no reason for that. It is intolerable, and it needs to change immediately in Canada.
I just want to make one comment and follow up to you, Ron. I mean, just judging from the comments here, first of all, they're puerile. They're, this is what they do. They're winning the social media war because they go on social media and try to intimidate and silence you. I've had that happen with the stories I've done about food vendors, and she's on here. I can see Kimberly Lauren. Hello. This is what they do. They did it with Javier Davila. Whether I'm pronouncing it right or not, I don't care. He's a teacher at the Toronto School Board who issued anti-Semitic manuals. But this is what they do. They get their friends to come on and try to intimidate and silence and bully you. Well, I'm not going to be easily bullied. As you said in your introduction, I'm going to continue to expose anti-Semitism. But, just look at the comments that are coming up here. They're so childish. They're so puerile. They operate from emotion, not from intelligence. They operate from ignorance and not from any sort of fact or fact-based debate.
But the problem is that feelings and emotions and opinions trump facts and truth, especially in this post-truth era that we live in this wokeism kind of a world that we live in, where everything is upside down and right is wrong and wrong is right. you know, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
supporting terrorist organizations has sometimes become the woke thing to do. Supporting Hamas, you know, how many videos you can find online of people within Gaza, you know, demanding that Hamas, you know, either change their ways or that Hamas needs to end. You know, how many videos are there on YouTube of Gaza that people don't see, of Gaza where the millionaires and billionaires, the Hamas people are living the lavish life? You know, it's amazing. Mary, we need to do a whole show just about the Gaza you don't see and expose all the villas, all the beautiful cars. I just saw a video from Gaza the other day with a gold iPhone that is being sold for like something like $18,000, some ridiculous amount like that. And this is in what the world is describing as the world's biggest open prison, a concentration camp. My family was in concentration camps, my friend. And when I asked my family about whether or not they had those kind of facilities in the Warsaw Ghetto or in any other concentration camp, are you kidding me? Restaurants, villas, you know, getaways, shopping malls, ice cream parlors, clothing stores with the name Hitler for them, Mercedes-Benz vehicles, you name it, they have it in Gaza. You know who doesn't have it in Gaza? The people who are being oppressed by Hamas. They're not being oppressed by Israel. If Hamas can have all that good, that means that the rest of the people in Gaza could have that good if Hamas would only share it. But Hamas doesn't share it. The $100 that come in every month from Qatar to pay for every Palestinian in Gaza, how much of that money is stolen by Hamas in order to prop up their own agenda? So you know what? Before you go and point a finger at Israel, go point a finger at your own leadership, your own corrupt leadership. They're each with billions and billions of dollars individually. When they can be worth billions of dollars individually, you got to ask yourself, who here is really oppressing the Palestinian people? And it's the PA and it's Hamas. And until those two entities are brought down to their knees, and the only way they're going to be brought down to their knees is by bringing Iran down to its knees, this will not change. Because Iran is prompting up this. They don't care about Palestinians. They don't care about their own people. They will shoot them, kill them, torture them, maim them, throw them into the water. They don't care. They care about power and they care about terror.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and all they wanted, and they want to ignore, number one, that Hamas is in control. That's number one. And number two, that Israel is the only democracy within this whole series of states where, you know, Javier, if he went over, like I said, would be thrown off a building for being a queer Latina transformer. And I never understand the radical lesbians who support Palestine and support the Gaza and the West Bank. It just boggles my mind.
It's the Stockholm syndrome, you know. That's what it is. You know, if I support you somehow, you will leave me alone. Yeah, you'll be left alone until the end, with nobody else left alone. Then you'll be taken care of as well. That's the irony of it all. You know, somebody commented on here like they think it's some big deal. Oh, gay people can't get married in Israel. Show me what gay people can do in the PA or in Gaza. Show me two gay people walking, holding hands anywhere in the West Bank or in Gaza. Show me anywhere in the West Bank and Gaza where a couple can get married of the same sex and bring children, you know, through surrogacy or through adoption. Show me where in Gaza that can happen or in the West Bank. You
Ron,
know, so
yeah,
seriously.
I want to tell you something about Israel. My wife and I were ready to adopt a child from Israel. And it unfortunately, it fell through for political reasons, but not for anything else. But they were very open. And by the way, it was a Muslim child, and we were dealing with an Arab social worker. So for all those people who called me Islamophobic and racist, I want it out there that we were ready to adopt a Muslim child 10 years ago.
Listen, it's funny. I see a guy here calling me, you know, Ron Feast, all kinds of stupidity. Again, they have no truth, nothing that they can say. So they try to attack you, you know, on a personal level. You know, my mother is gay, is openly gay, but is also, you know, a gangster Zionist. If I'm a gangster Zionist, my mom is tenfold that. You know, people don't understand that to be Zionist doesn't mean you're right wing, left wing.
Let me just say,
it's crazy.
I don't take anything they say. I mean, they've written a book about me, and I laugh about it. They put up memes about me. I laugh about them. I find some of them hysterical.
I challenge any one of them. Who says that we're full of lies. Get on the phone right now and let's have an open and honest conversation. Let's get truth and facts.
The bottom. I have a long history of fighting anti-Semitism, and I'm devoted my life to fighting anti-Semitism, my adult life to fighting anti-Semitism. And I've been successful on a lot of fronts. And we're not giving up. We have a lot to do. I motivate people to get involved and fight against anti-Semitism. That's what we have to do because, my parents were survivors of the Holocaust. And, just a few days ago, I was watching, it's on YouTube, but I just want to go over it again. There was a movie made in the 70s called Skokie with Danny Kaye. And that was when a neo-Nazi group wanted to march in Skokie, Illinois, which had a large population there of Holocaust survivors. They wanted to parade around with swastikas, say Hitler didn't finish the job. And the whole show was devoted to that, and Dan was playing a Holocaust survivor and standing up. The same hate back then, because the Nazis, that was based on a true story that neo-Nazi group wanted in Skokie. And that's when the JDL was making a lot of so that we're going to confront these people and we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that Nazis with swastikas and was right is going to march in front of Holocaust survivors. How dare they could do it. What the BDS wants today, exactly the same thing. They want to humiliate Jews. They want to beat Jews. And when they put out their memes and all sense and BS, we're above it and we fight it. And that's what we're doing. And we're successful at it. And Sue's had a lot of successes. You had a lot of successes. I've had successes. Sam. And when they want to bring this into the schools, we know what they have in store for Jewish students.
Listen, Mayor, it's already in schools. You don't have to teach the children, by teachers in order for this to already be in school. My kid, who's now 14, last year at age 13, had multiple incidents at school where, because of him being Jewish and Israeli, being, verbally attacked by students in the school, both, Arab and non-Arab students. And it got to the point where he was confronted by 5 students who told him that, they're going to make sure he goes back into the ovens. Which resulted in a brawl, that ensued. Lucky for my son, his father was a Canadian champion in wrestling, and he knows how to defend himself and defend himself quite successfully, and I'm very proud of him. But it just shows you that even at age 13, Jewish children, are facing anti-Semitism at school, and anti-Semitism doesn't have to be taught by teachers; it's taught at home. It's taught at home. Hate is not taught at school mostly. Hate is taught at home. It might be supported by some stuff at school, but hate starts and ends by being taught at home. We saw that here in Winnipeg on May 15th during the anti-Israel rally that took place here. And, most of the people who were in attendance were young males, ages, probably 14, 15 to the mid-20s. All of them were born in Canada. All of them grew up here. Most of them have never been to Israel, never been to the West Bank, never been to Gaza, never been part of the conflict, and yet they had such hate in them. To tell me they're going to rape my wife and my daughter, such hate, such vile. It's taught at home. It's not taught at schools.
I just thought I'd mention that Kimberly is chatting away. Her fingers are probably getting tired, and she's probably getting writer's cramp because she's texting so much. So periodically, I'll show one of her texts. But I thought I'd put up, some of the fun interactions that Kimberly seems to have developed a new hobby since she doesn't have a job anymore. She is texting away instead. So maybe, Sue, maybe she wants to be a writer. Perhaps you could coach her a little bit.
Well,
that not only Kimberly but her disciples are having a great time accusing Mayor of an email campaign. I don't know. I'm on his email list. It didn't seem like much of a campaign. It was pretty easy to convince people that what they're doing is just blatant anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism. It's more than that. It's bigotry. It's racism. Sometimes we need to realize that anti-Semitism is racism, and they try to deny that. They try to say there's racism, which is anti-black, anti-gay, anti-Mexican, anti-Asian, but anti-racism against Jews somehow is just different. So I thought we'd enjoy this, that your terrorist organization. I don't know. I'm not a terrorist, and I'm certainly but a follower nonetheless. So why don't you let an email campaign that resulted in dozens of Zionists bombarding Joshua Creek Heritage Arts Center with emails demanding the venue cancel. I don't think there was any demands made. All I did was I sent her the Canary Mission page of Kimberly Lauren. Once they read that, they decided not to have it there. That's not my commentary. Those are from others. So I thought you'd enjoy this little thing. Let's see if we have anything recent from Kimberly. I'm sure she's right now had a little break. So let's put some more of her stuff on. So unfortunately, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sue.
While you're doing that, I might say that Kimberly, just because I've covered the story and I did my job, and yes, I was tenacious about covering, she's made up this crap that I'm obsessed with her, as if I'm coming after her. And in fact, when every time I've written a story, for some reason, I get harassed constantly, as I was just after my father died in December, by people signing me up. I think maybe her supporters signing me up for all kinds of online platforms. It went on for weeks. It went on for months. Thanks for thinking of me.
I just want to just share with you Kimberly's articulate nature. I think she does have a writing future because she doesn't know me. I mean, I'm just the engineer. I'm over here having a fun time. But this is her very articulate, educated, college degree comment. Read it slowly because it's very prophetic. Okay, that's not her, but let's find the one from her that's even better. Let's see. We all keep talking while I search for this.
Yeah.
Well, she's always gone on and said I lie about her. Well, okay, Kimberly, you're listening to this. Are you not facing a court case in September where you could have your business license taken away? I didn't do that. You were charged with violating the municipal bylaw. Okay, you're going to court in September. You're facing 2 human rights cases. You're facing a defamation case. Did I do that? I merely reported on it. I went to your store a year ago and bought a salad and even when you said Zionists weren't welcome, I walked into the store and said, I'm Jewish, I'm Zionist, will you sell me the salad? And that's how it all started. And you've continued to go on Twitter and on Facebook, saying all kinds of vile things about Israel. I mean, in somebody's charged with human rights abuses, someone's charged by the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal, someone's facing defamation suit, someone's facing having her business license yanked, and she keeps ramping it up. She keeps doubling down and tripling down. How crazy is that?
So when I mentioned that on the air, but I mentioned that I'm going to put Kimberly's post up. She took down the post that said, Gary, you're a fucking loser. That was her great. Maybe she wants to spell check it because I think she spelled like Gary wrong and fucking wrong. But she decided, then she told me I can't read quick enough. No, I actually can read pretty quickly.
I think that our show is slowly diving down into the level that they want the show to go to, and I don't want to go into that level that they're at. I can say again that if Kimberly wants to have an honest and open conversation that's not about feelings and opinions, but it's about facts and truth, we can definitely schedule a time for her to be on the show and have the opportunity on facts and truth, not on feelings and opinions. Same thing goes for anybody else who wants to debate, facts and truth, and not opinions and feelings. I just want to say that it's just fascinating to watch everything that's being written as we're talking. It's almost a distraction. Because it actually just exactly points to the issue that we have here, that this is pure and simple hate. Has nothing to do with facts, has nothing to do with history, has nothing to do with anything else, but just pure hate, calling people names, telling people they're fat or ugly or whatever it is. It's so derogatory and so childish and so high schoolish that I don't do that. I believe in dealing with facts and
well, let me just put in for a second. I want to put in as one of Kimber's followers. It's her birthday a couple of days ago. So just to show how non-judgmental, how we judge everybody, Sam, I've made a little birthday card. Here's her little birthday card, and it's a one-way ticket to Gaza and it's a happy birthday to her followers. And there it is. So I hope she had a very happy birthday. Unfortunately, her plans to go to Gaza kind of abruptly changed because we realized that the beautiful airport they had 20 years ago is no more because they could spend money on tunnels, on bombs, on missiles, on terrorists. But for some reason, they couldn't maintain their airport. But sadly, we're onward and forward.
If anyone has any, wants to call in, has a question, a comment, the lines are open now. The phone number is 510-5535. You could ask us a question. Any of us make a comment, no problem. Earlier, I was not taking calls because we had a lot to cover and we have the guests on and we had to delve into this topic. But anyone wants to call in, that's fine now.
It seems that Kimberly wants to call in. She doesn't want it to hang up. So let's see if she has the guts to call in without, opinions and, and feelings, but about truth and facts. Let's see. Go ahead, Kimberly. The line's open.
Okay.
Let's see. A challenger. Give me some facts.
Well, I'll interject here, Ron. I'll make my 2 cents, let's say, from someone my age. The problem is people of my generation are taught in university and college to think on an emotional level, not on a logical and rational level. Therefore, if we're going to combat people on our level, you're going to have to approach them on an emotional level as well. I was in New York recently, and I was cutting back through the Bronx. And when I was cutting back through the Bronx at around 11:30 at night, not the safest route, but Waze will take you where it takes you. I saw 2 Free Palestine vans giving out water and blankets and food to a variety of people there. It's not hard to get people on your side if you're going to connect with them on that sort of emotional level. Like I've said to people in the past, like it's wonderful that Israel's doing these missions in Africa and places like that, but send some emissaries to some indigenous communities here in Canada. Start like reaching out to them. There are indigenous communities in Canada that don't have clean water, right? That's our government's fault. But at the same time, if a group from Israel came out and approached those people, and then those people started spreading positive things about Israel, you might see things move in a different direction. It's just something I've noticed in the past that we always try to approach everything from logical.
I can't speak to what happens in Ontario and other parts of Canada. I can speak to what happens here in Manitoba, and I can tell that here in Manitoba, those of us who are, and again, I'm going to separate myself from the organized Jewish community, and I want to make that very clear. I don't represent the organized Jewish community. In fact, I have many, many issues with the organized Jewish community. I think they're part of the problem. I think they're part of the problem. I think that they're part of the symptom. I think they're acting the same way as the organized Jewish community acted in the 1930s when Hitler came to power. I think they're always, waiting to act too late, even though, the signal's out there, the house is burning, but they still want to make marshmallows, and s'mores as it's happening. They weren't there when I was attacked. They didn't come to support us when Israeli flags were burned. They didn't demand that hate crimes be investigated. They're very selective on who they want to protect within the Jewish community and who they don't. And if they see as somebody who's taking over or is out there a bit too much, being too advocate-y, going to cause them any kind of a heartache or a headache, they want to distance themselves as far away from you as possibly they can, because you're disturbing their monopoly, you're disturbing, their way of running things. I put up a post the other day that I wanted to run for leadership of my community, but the problem is I can't, because it's a select group, it's a closed group, it's like a private golf club. And unless you're a member of that private golf club and you're paying tons of money in order to be a member of the golf club, you're never going to be president of that golf club. It's the same with the Jewish community. The Federation doesn't represent a Jewish community. CJ doesn't represent us. Bnei Brit doesn't represent us. I never voted for any of them. I've never seen what their background is, what their stand is on any particular issue relevant to me. And yet somehow somebody decided these people represent you, me, and everybody else on here. On the issue of the indigenous people, though, we do quite a bit of work here in Manitoba, engaging with the indigenous community in Manitoba. I'm very close friends with quite a few people within the Christian community who have engaged them and take on a regular basis plane full of indigenous people into Israel in order to see. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Ron, we have on the phone.
Hey, Marty. Marty is my
Marty, how you doing?
Is my editor for the J.ca. Great to hear you, Marty.
There's a bit of a lag between the video and me calling in. I just want to elaborate, if it's okay,
sure,
about what Ron said about this disconnect.
Yep.
About the organized Jewish, community organized Jewish leadership and the rank and file. I know that, our specialty really is what's going on in Winnipeg because that's where our headquarters is.
Right.
And it's become a really serious problem that really is illustrated by Ron's mock-up of a candidacy to want to lead the community. Right now, in September, they're approaching, I'm sure this is the same in all the communities, Super Sunday, whatever they may call it in each community, where they do their massive fundraising.
Right.
In Toronto, that amounts to $66, I think, $million. In Winnipeg, it's a lot closer, between 6 and 7. And what the communities are faced with now is a record, on the surface, of absolute failure of leadership in Winnipeg beyond any question. There's no doubt that there's been a failure of leadership going back a couple of years, failing to speak effectively about the appearance of Linda Sarsour, failing to counteract the incursion of If Not Now with any kind of effectiveness, with any kind of statement. Failure to reach the victims of violence on May the 15th. CEJA and the Winnipeg Federation have not decried the theft and burning of flags as hate crimes. They have done nothing to press the police in that matter. They've allowed all sorts of accusations to be made against, but because they're their kind of Zionists, the Federation, just sort of prances along as though there's no more problem in the community, and now they're going to try to rattle the cages for $6 million. And the Jewish community needs to begin to recognize, not just in Winnipeg, but else, these federations admit, you look at the CEJA website, they admit that they represent the members, that they can credibly go to Erwin Klopper's summit and say, we, are a platform through which Jewish voices are being heard. That's an absolute lie. There's no inclusion of Israelis on the in the anti-Semitism summit, any more so than there was any presence of ex-Muslims, people who are opposed to Islamicism, to fanatical Islam, at the so-called Islamophobia summit the next day. And so this lack of representation within Jews, there's got to be some way of people beginning to address it and raise some awareness before they open their wallets and give these clowns $6 million in Winnipeg or $66 million in Toronto, where they may be good functioning as the United Way, is my point. They might be good at running old folks' homes and these forms of charitableness within the community. When it comes to political representation, they have no mandate, and on top of that, they are heavily infested with left-wing influences that they refuse to acknowledge and refuse to repudiate. And there's need, in my opinion, for people that are committed Zionists to start trying to take control of the steering wheel in our country.
Hey, listen, you're right. I agree with you, Marty, 100%. There's no question about it.
I agree too, because I felt when I was appalled with the violence that occurred here in Toronto, Nathan Phillips Square on May the 15th. And the groups did react, but not very strongly, and there was no follow-up. I did a number of stories and was appalled at what happened to young people who simply went there to see what was going on and found themselves confronted, attacked. The CBC even did a story about a man that I interviewed, Greg, and never bothered to get his side of the story and called him a terrorist, man who was attacked. So I'm appalled at the organizations. I'm appalled at the way some of the mainstream media has covered or not covered these sort of situations. Very one-sided, and they let the people get away, like the people who are commenting here, with calling you a racist or a bigot or Islamophobic. It's actually quite boring at this point, because they throw those words around like candy if you dare expose them.
It's organizations that have the word Jewish in them, like Independent Jewish Voices for Peace, even If Not Now. When you go on any of their platforms and you see the vile anti-Semitism that's being spewed in the comments, and yet you don't have a single person from that organization of leadership to come out and say to somebody who spews their anti-Semitic, garbage, hey, this is out of line, there's Jewish people here, and regardless, none of that. So you understand that the people who are running those organizations are A, not Jewish, or B, if they're Jewish, they're so self-loathing that, they've already gone to the other side completely. Because no Jew, and I don't care if you're left wing, right wing, where you stand on the positions, no Jew can accept anti-Semitism and slurs at them without it affecting them, and I don't care who you are. And allowing it on your platforms, even if you're a pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel Jewish organization, it just shows that you don't care about Judaism as a whole to begin with. Number two, I want to just say that here in Winnipeg, a 16-year-old Jewish man was actually assaulted on May 15th. We've raised that with the Federation here. We raised it with CIJA, with Bnei Brit. We asked what kind of supports the person can get. Nothing. Silence, nothing, not a 16-year-old we're talking about. So when the other, not only that, let me just go further and say that before we had a rally here in Winnipeg, the Jewish Federation went out of the way to make sure that they went to the media and to the public to let them know that the people that are going to be running the rally were not associated with the organized Jewish community of Winnipeg. So what they did was they said, those Jews over there, they don't belong to us. So we don't accept, they're not Jews like us. They're not equal to us. They literally threw us to the wolves in a sense by saying, we're not going to support, we're not going to stand in shoulder to shoulder with, we're not going to speak against any violence against these people. We're going to come out and say that these people are not part of our organized Jewish community. Not only that, when following that, we ran a car rally, which was biggest turnout in Winnipeg's history, I think, of any kind of a pro-Israel rally. We had over 200 vehicles, probably close to 1,000 people that came out. But when we put out the word that the rally is going to be out, the Jewish Federation, the JCC itself, sent a lawyer after us, trying to bully us into not holding our car rally outside the Jewish Community Center, telling us that they're blocking off the parking lots to access to our vehicles, that they were going to bring extra security there against us, against Jews, against Jews who stand up for the only Jewish state, that they were going to make sure there was going to be extra police there.
Ron. 1 second, Marty, as well. Somebody else is trying to get in as well. Can I help you?
Yeah, I'm here for the show.
Yes.
Am I live?
Yes, you are.
All right, perfect. So basically, I have a few points. You guys talked so much before you guys got anybody in. So I'm not going to be talking. I don't know how long you guys allow people to talk, but thanks for having us.
Okay.
So basically, one thing you said in the beginning was BDS denies Holocaust.
Yes.
And that we call you guys European colonizers.
Yes.
But at the same time, like Bennett, Netanyahu, and a bunch of different Israeli politicians, they say the right of return for Palestinians. When Palestinians say we want the right to return, that you guys say that Palestinians should be accepted in the countries that they settled in. So if they went to Lebanon, they should become Lebanese. If they went to Syria, they should be Syrian. And
Okay. Sir, what's your name?
You can call me Mark.
Okay, Mark.
Mayor, I can answer that if you want.
Wait,
no
Ron,
problem.
So, Mark.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a religious guy or not, but I left.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, I left a few things out. I didn't mention that the BDS, the also Jesus was a Palestinian. Let me tell you something. Get something straight. Jesus was Jewish. He went up temple. He was in Judea. Thank you very much for your call.
Mayor, if I can just, I don't want to leave it. I don't want to leave it hanging like that, because then it seems like we don't want to. I just want to reply to what he was saying, and if we're going to talk about, pan-Arabs, that took on the name of Palestinians, in 1964, but until then they were pan-Arabs. And if you're going to look really at the history of British mandate Palestine, and before that under the Ottoman Empire auspices, and you look at the migration into British mandate Palestine, and the vast majority of pan-Arabs who moved into British mandate Palestine did so only after there was a Jewish influx into British mandate Palestine. The Jews brought with them industrialization, they brought with them work, they brought with them, European knowledge in many ways as they returned back to their homelands. And many of the pan-Arabs who moved into Palestine, British mandate Palestine at that time, moved there for economic reasons, much the same as in today in Lebanon. there's a huge influx of pan-Arabs who work in Lebanon, because the GDP in Lebanon, the average wage in Lebanon for people from Middle East is much higher than it would be in Jordan or Syria or Egypt or anywhere else. So people migrate. Let me just finish. So people,
wait, Ron, you could continue, but I just want to pop one thing in there. What is missing from the comment from that caller is taking on any Arab responsibility for the 1948 war of a planned genocide of the Jewish people in Israel. Israel, the Jews at the time, accepted the partition plan. The Arab side of the war, and they were open back then to say, we're going to throw the Jews into the sea. They're very open, explicit about that. He talks about right of return.
Yeah, but that's why I want to touch the point on.
Listen, BDS buddy who calls up, acknowledge guilt in starting the war in 1948, and let's try and talk about something. They will never, ever accept any responsibility for any of the wars, any of the anti-Semitism, any of the support for Nazism, any support for trying to kill the Jews. They never will. And they talk, and their mantra, free Palestine, it's a bunch of BS. There we go. There's a great meme. Sure. Right from day one.
But that's just to try and...
Lieberman says that. He says this. Who started the wars? They did. Who started the latest rounds with Gaza? Hamas. Thou rockets fired at Israel. They started, they waved the flag, free Palestine, European colonialists coming in. We're Jews, our roots trace back. That's how it is. We say it in the Torah. We say it every high holiday, every Passover, next year. That's our faith. That's how it is. And by the way, there were always Jews in Israel, even after the expulsion by the Romans, when they destroyed the temple. There were always Jewish communities, still remained throughout Israel. You go to the cemeteries, north and south in Israel, in the middle, you'll see it, centuries, Jewish graves. That's how it is. We're not invaders. It belongs to us.
I just
go ahead, Rick.
I just want to throw a statistic out. Our population, Jewish population in the world, is about 0.2% of all the religions. Christianity being the highest, and followed by Islamism, and on down to Judaism. 0.2%. We have one state, compared to other Arab countries and compared to Christian countries. And these people talk about Palestine shall be free from the river to the sea. What do you think they want to do? They want to destroy the one state. That's all it's about. They want to destroy. This isn't about oppressing the Palestinians. This isn't about, indigenous rights or colonialism. They just want to push Israel right back into the sea. Let's be plain and simple about it.
Absolutely.
Miss Lauren here, she doesn't care about the poor Palestinians. None of them do. None of them. If she cared, she'd go over and actually help them, deliver water, deal with their food issues, whatever. She comments from afar. They're just all raving anti-Semites. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true.
I would agree on many of
1948 to 97, there could have been a Palestinian state in what they call the West Bank. How come there wasn't?
But I love that these people all comment from afar, from thousands of kilometers away. They make all kinds of comments. Most of them have never been there, as most of us, or all of us on this, I've been over several times. I was just there in 2018, went to the West Bank, could see these things for myself. I love these people who are either indoctrinated in university or chime the same mantra because it's trendy, or really they just hate Jews. But that's what it's all about.
That's how it is. And until similar to the denazification process that occurred after the Holocaust, until there's going to be such a thing happening in the Arab world and with the Abraham Accords, Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates, they're making steps by
Mhm.
adopting the IRA definition of anti-Semitism and eliminating some of the anti-Semitism from the school books until countries and Islamic countries are going to follow in the same footsteps and do that. We're going to have to contend with this anti-Semitism. There's absolutely no question about it.
Well, and most of these people, like Kimberly, vociferously are against the IRA definition. Why? Because they want to continue to criticize Israel in the guise of, just being against oppression. They're not against oppression. How many times could I'll have to repeat it over and over again. They're just against Jews. It's Jew hate.
You want no Israel,
Guys,
period. They make it clear.
Guys, I think at some point we need to put this food bender thing to rest. I mean, you're giving this woman way too much credit and credibility for who she is and what she is. A year and a half ago, she was making sandwiches, maybe healthy sandwiches, I'm not sure. Now she's become somehow the spokesperson for the pro-Palestinian woke Canadian community, largely to the fact that we're putting such spotlight on her instead of just letting her be. She's got so many court cases against her. At the end of the day, she's going to have to deal with the consequences of the choices that she's made. And yes, Kimberly, you're right. You didn't have it on a sign outside your restaurant. You actually had it up on social media. If you want to go into semantics about where you said Zionist not welcome. So there you go, Kim. We straightened that out. The point I'm trying to make here is that we need to focus more on what we need to do in our story and sharing our story. And like Sam said, doing more outreach into the communities, to show them, and to share with them who we are. And we need to much less focus on the Kimberlys of the world and the Firazes of the world and the Aliyah Hassans of the world, who, for us might seem like big players, but in the end of the day, they're nothing more than a very small part of a much bigger engine. And for me, I see them as entertainment. And from time to time, I find the stuff they put up funny and hilarious. What bothers me and what worries me more than anything else, and I've said it to Mary before, is they're being used as test balloons by whoever is operating them. And the people who operate them are the people you need to worry about. Because Aliyah Hassan and Firaz al-Najim, and between the two of them, could not be have the manpower nor the brain capability to operate the kind of operation they operate on their own. So that they're being sponsored and supported from some type of outside entities. And those entities are the ones who are pushing them to do the things they do, like doing a walk inside the Jewish community and continuing trying to push the boundaries and the barriers of what's acceptable in a democratic community as they continue to rage their assault on the Jewish community. And we need to focus on those types of things, of how we're allowing, marches against Jews in our own communities. I'll tell you, here in Winnipeg, they threatened us that they were going to do a drive-through through our Jewish communities. You know what we did? We phoned the police and we told them we're going to block every major entrance into our Jewish communities with burning tires and vehicles. Nobody will come in. Nobody will come out. If they want to bring the Middle East to Winnipeg, bring the Middle East to Winnipeg. We know what we're doing. You will not tell us you're going to murder us. You're not going to tell us you're going to rape us and expect us to stand idly by. The days of Jews, and no, I'm not angry for those of you who think I'm angry. I'm just telling you the way it is. For those of you who think the days of Jews being cowards, the days of Jews cowering and backing away, days of Jews just, accepting it the way it is over. It's done. It's a new day. It's a new era in Canada, and Jews are standing up for themselves. There's close to 40,000 Israelis, I believe, living in Canada today. 40,000 of us. Are you going to tell me that 40,000 of us don't have the same equal rights as you do to live in this country? What did we do not to deserve the same equal rights as you to live in this country? What did we do not to deserve the same equal rights as you to walk on the streets freely with our Magen Davids, wear our kippot, wear Israeli flags? What gives you the right? What made you judge and jury? What made you the people to decide which Canadian is acceptable as a Canadian and which Canadian is not? You talk about Islamophobia? You talk about racism against Arabs, against Muslims? Look at what you're doing. Look at what you're doing. Look at the racism that you're undertaking. Look at the anti-Semitism that you're putting out. Look in the mirror a little bit and examine yourselves. What are you doing to contribute to the fear of your own community that lives in this country? Stop the anti-Semitism. Stop the rhetoric. Stop the nonsense. Have a dialogue. Have a conversation. And we can get together here as Jews. I'm always open to engage with anybody from any side who wants to have a fair and honest conversation about the truth and about what it is. but I'm not willing to be a scapegoat for anybody. I'm not willing to be a victim for anybody. My family did not survive the Holocaust. My family did not survive the pogrom in Hebron in 1929 for any of us to be victims. And that's why I'm a gangster Zionist, and I will be a gangster Zionist until the day I die, because Israel belongs to the Jewish people, period. End of story. Yes, there are other people who live in the land because for 2,000 years we were allowed there. In that time, others have come in and made it their home. Understood. We get it. There was an option for those people to have their own piece of the land for themselves. They chose to engage in 70 plus years of wars and terrorism against the Jewish people with some kind of belief that they will push us to the sea. We will not go to the sea. The Holocaust was the last time the Jews would be pushed around. It will never happen again. Now, we're more than willing to sit down and speak with anybody about peace and honesty. Your show starts with one of the greatest songs in Hebrew, Evenu Shalom Aleichem. We bring peace upon you. That's how you start your show. You know what? How many songs of peace I learned in school in Israel as a child? Dozens and dozens. You know how many anti-Arab songs I learned at school? Zero. None. Nada. You know how many stories I learned at school about humanity, about being kind, about being loving, about respecting mankind and your fellow men? A million. You know how many stories I heard about hating Arabs, hating Palestinians? You know, none, zero. It doesn't exist in the Jewish education system. It doesn't happen. That's not who we are. That's not how we bring up our people. We've never been conquerors. My son asked me the other day, how come there's only 15 million of us? Which, by the way, is still a number less than what we were before the Holocaust. He said, why is there only 15 million of us? You know, if Judaism was the first monolithic religion, why is there only 15 million of us, but there's 2 billion of that religion and 1.5 billion of that religion? I said, because we're not a conquering religion. Those other two religions are conquering religions. The religions were based on conquering and converting people to their religions. Christianity and Islam. It's all about conquering and making people follow your own religion, your own faith. That's what happened, you know, in all the wars back and forth went between the Christians and the Muslim. How many times was Israel conquered back and forth between them as they fought their religious wars? Jews are not like that. We're not conquerors. We're not warriors. We don't look to go to other countries and take them over. When's the last time you heard Jews or Israelis say, we're going to go and take over this and that land? Never. Doesn't happen. But that's not who we are. That's why we're a small group of people. That's why we're a small people. Because people believe in peace and love. We just want to be left alone in our own ancestral homeland that for 2,000 years we were not allowed to come back to. That's all we want. And we want to make peace with our neighbors. We want to live in peace with everybody. We don't want war with anybody.
Ron, I got to let Sam is going to be signing off, so I want to let him say some final words to our viewers.
Yeah,
Sam,
thank
you very much
for having me.
I know it's hard.
Yeah,
I know.
thanks so much for having me and giving me an opportunity to share my story and add a little tidbit here or there. You know, in an illustrious company over here, so. You know, thank you for allowing me to have my 2 cents. If I can add another 2 more, is just that for those Jews who experience these sort of attacks or whatever, don't be afraid to go on social media and talk about them. Don't be afraid to say you don't have to say anything political. You don't have to say anything. Say what happens to you. Like, if our stories are out there, then more people can spread them around to other people. Because if we don't share our stories, it's useless. We're not doing anything. They can't.
Sam, you're absolutely right.
They can't be on our side if we don't share a story. So
yeah, absolutely.
You're absolutely right. I've done a number of stories about anti-Semitism on the campuses of Ryerson, UT, and York, and it took some very brave Jewish students to come forward. But just like yourself, you're not a student, but you know, and it made a difference at the universities. It held their feet to the fire, and this is where the hatred is being bred.
Everybody's wondering where it's coming from. It started, like, look at the universities 10, 12 years ago, and you can see where it all started. And all these people graduate and end up owning business.
And they're all in this feed, saying, crap that they've been indoctrinated about. They know 5 words: terrorist, apartheid, colonialism, intersectionality. I'm sorry, I threw that in.
Thanks, we gotta
And,
get that
you
in.
know, all these stupid buzzwords. And I get that thrown at me all the time. You're this, you're a bigot, you're a racist, blah, 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 blah. But that's all the words they know. And they repeat the same mantra. And if you question them, they repeat the same thing over and over. Like they're all,
brainwashed.
you know,
That's what
yeah, they're all
brainwashing is.
brainwashed.
And you all repeat the same
Yeah.
10, 12, whatever words, and you march to the same tune. It's just
Yeah.
that's what
And you can see
brainwashing
it
is.
here. They're doing
It's
it
the same.
like,
It's the same
yeah.
talking points. It's Palestinian flag, Palestinian flag, Palestinian flag. Oh, you're fat. Oh, you're
Palestine
this.
should be
Palestine
free.
free.
And that's the
Palestinian.
point.
Yeah.
It's nothing to
Free
do with
Palestine.
anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism anyway. Like I know a very good friend of mine posted something about there was in Baltimore 3 months ago, there was a gentleman killed right outside his door. And all she did was post that, like, Jewish person killed. And numerous, just like free Palestine, that's nothing to do with Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And this is the point. Everybody's trying to politicize an issue that can't be politicized. It's hatred. Hatred isn't political.
When you go into Starbucks, and they've got, you know, a sign, Free Palestine, or you go here. I mean, these are all baristas who have been taught in universities. They don't have a brain between them.
Yeah, they all follow their whoever on Instagram and TikTok and whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
They say like Free Palestine, so they're millions and millions and
cool.
millions of followers. It's cool. You're in the
it's
group.
cool. Yeah, they're in the A group. They're on the A team, and they repeat it. I challenged a couple people on Instagram and on Twitter. Okay, what do you mean by Free Palestine? What are you talking about? How are you going to free?
When you try to engage them, they don't know they haven't read. They don't know. They just read Free Palestine and all this stuff. It's like they're the people who, when they cheer for a sports team, it's always the underdog. Like they don't have a favorite sports team. It's whoever's the lowest of the, like at that time. It's just, unfortunately, that's the way we've taught people that being a victim or whatever is okay. It's just like victim mentality is, you know, like I could have not spoken about this and I could have not done anything about it and just let it be, like I have with verbal stuff that's been thrown at me. Because, you know, if you're wearing a kippah in Toronto, like I remember working at Roots, some guy going to me, "Oh, I didn't know Jews work retail. Like you're all above this, aren't you? Like, you know, we can't have a job like that. Like it's, you know, and that's just blatant anti-Semitism. It has nothing to do with
I've sat at City Hall and covered meetings where they've turned on me about Al-Quds, for example, getting Al-Quds off the streets of Toronto. And there are people who sit there and they say, like, Michael Mostyn of B'nai B'rith, and I'm part of the Israel lobby, the Zionist lobby. That's what they use, Zionist lobby. The people on this, you know, on this thread use that. What the heck is the Zionist lobby?
I don't have.
But we're standing up for ourselves, so we're part of the Zionist lobby. I guess you're part of it too, Sam.
Yeah, lucky me. I get grouped in. Where's my card? You know, my membership T-shirt.
Yeah, I don't get paid. I'm like, you know, if I'm going to be a lobbyist, at least I like to make good money.
You know, they seem to make good money down in Washington. I don't. It's not trickling back my way. So
yeah.
You know. Alrighty, guys. Well, it's been wonderful to meet you all.
Sam, it's been wonderful meeting you. Like I said again, you know, we stand in solidarity and with you. Proud that you came out and shared your experience. The more people that are willing to share the experience, the better it is for all of us. And then we don't feel alone. We don't feel like it only happens to us, and it allows us to come together as a community. I loved your ideas about, you know, the reaching out and the project that can be done. I think it's something that, you know, the community does have to look at. And again, you know, it's the organized Jewish community that's not doing the job, because they should be doing those types of things to bring, you know, the communities closer together. So I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate having the opportunity to share the screen with you. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Mayor, if I can just get back a little bit to what Sue-Ann was saying about the thread and what's going on in the thread here. You know, it just you know, emphasizes to me everything that I've been saying all along. You know, some of them are saying the tide is turning. No, the tide is not turning. What's happening is what's happening is that you're just more radicalized. But you know, every pendulum, you know, swings one way and then swings back the other.
Exactly.
You know, North America is always a few years behind what happens in Europe. So you can always look at Europe to see what's happening, how the tide is turning. The tide is turning in Europe, not in your favor, but against you. Europe has come to understand, what the global intifada means, what Al-Quds Day means, to their own safety and security in Germany, in France, in England, in Denmark, wherever it is in Europe. And at Canada and the United States will eventually wake up to that reality too, because it always starts with the Jews, but it never ends with the Jews. And you can call yourself an anti-Zionist, but when 95% of Jews identify themselves with the state of Israel, then you're attacking all Jews, and therefore an anti-Zionist is an anti-Semite. If you want to debate a particular, government, I don't know what, law, whatever, that's one thing like we do here in Canada. But to throw everybody, every Israeli under the bus, left wing, right wing, Mizrahi Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, Sephardic Jews, combine them all as colonial settlers. My family has roots in Israel that go back, at least 6 generations that I can identify through DNA genealogy. I know where I come from. My last name actually is Hamizrahi. For those of you over there who don't know what my last name means, and translated into English, it means East. Hamizrahi means an Easterner, the Easterner, the man who comes from the East, the Middle East. That's where my family is from. That's where all of us are from to beginning with. We can get, another day into the debate of why there are lighter colored Jews and darker colored Jews. That has to do with the same thing as everything else to do with how populations migrated and moved, and when Jews were kicked out of Israel and forced, into Europe, and where the Jewish women were raped by their masters, who were white in skin, and had generations happen. Same happened with African slaves in America. I mean, again, if you don't want to just look at Jews, but you want to look at the totality of oppression, Jews have been oppressed, for many, many years, for generations and millennia. And for those of you who don't like me calling, Palestinians pan-Arabs, that's tough, but that's what they are. They're pan-Arabs. They didn't like being called Palestinians in the 1930s. They didn't like it. They said the Jews were Palestinians. We're not Palestinians. We're pan-Arabs. So it was good for them in the 1930s under the British mandate, to call themselves pan-Arabs. But when the Russians showed up, the Soviet Union in 1964 and said, hey, let's take the name Palestine and call you guys Palestinians, all of a sudden, overnight, all these pan-Arabs, the Egyptians, the Saudis, the Syrians, the Lebanese, all of them all of a sudden overnight became this brand new people called the Palestinian people. And funny, because Palestinian is actually a Hebrew name coming from Philistine, which actually means invaders. They were actually invaders from Greek. So the actual Palestinians, the original Philistines, the first Philistines were actually invaders that invaded the Gaza Strip, where the Gaza Strip is today. They invaded there from the Greek islands. So they themselves were European descendants, and they themselves were invaders. So if we want to go, down history, but again, they won't like history on the other side. If you want to go down history, that's where history begins and ends. So we can debate it all along. The 750,000 that they claimed that were, during Nakba, most of them, left for economic reasons. They weren't even Palestinians, indigenous to the land. That's why it was easy for them to just get up and leave. The majority end up living to Gaza and Judea and Samaria. They didn't live that far away from there. That's why there are majorities today in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria. But we can have that discussion another day.
Absolutely. Okay, so the show are about kind of long, not an hour, a little more than an hour and a half. So we're going to wind down. So let's have some final words from Sue and Levy. We'll have a final word from you, Ron, from me. We'll also have our doctor in the studio, and we'll also have our ending song.
Yes.
Well, thanks, Meyer and Ron, for this frank discussion. And just reading all these comments proves everything we say. I mean, these people are they're stupid, childish narrative. They can't debate on facts, so they attack you personally and, make up this stupid narrative and throw out ridiculous stuff. We're going to do this. We're going to take over the world, whatever. And I am very, very happy to have done what I have done and what I will continue to do, trying to expose anti-Semitism. And the very fact that all these people came on makes me wonder what they have to do. What do they have anything better to do to try and bully people? I guess so. I guess not.
It's your fan club. You have
My fan club, yeah.
You have a fan club. That's good. Listen.
Yeah, and by the way, they
didn't come on. They didn't come on for me.
Yeah. Anyway,
they didn't come on for me. They came for you.
I don't think so. But anyway, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you very much, Sue. You've done throughout the years great work, important work, and it's great, and we'll have you on more often. And you have
Happy
a message to say,
to.
and with your experience, it's very important that we get that out to the community and to our friends also who are not part
You know
of
what?
it.
And I'm happy if you want to show this. I am so disappointed, and I agree with Ron, with the Jewish organizations. They, except for B'nai B'rith, who has been responsive at least, they have been asleep at the switch.
Mhm.
And when everything happened in May, it was like people woke up from a slumber. Oh my God, this anti-Semitism. Well, I've been writing about it since 2008, 9, when prayers against Israeli apartheid
Right.
hijacked the gay pride in, and
Right.
nobody gave us any support. We had a grassroots movement, and we continued to do what we do in this grassroots way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sue. Thank you so much. Ron.
Yes, this was entertaining to say the least. First of all, the conversation was great, but even better was watching them scroll up and down, watching all the messages and stuff there. Again, people attacking us personally and stuff is just hilarious to me. I have to say, I agree with Sue-Ann. You know, it seems like right now, and I'm going to say something that maybe it's not going to sound very popular here, but right now it seems to be the thing of the hour is to jump up and all of a sudden, you know, I'm against anti-Semitism in the Jewish community. How many different organizations have sprung up in the last year all of a sudden of different people who are saying that they're, you know, all of a sudden against anti-Semitism. Look at this new group, the United Movement, the grassroots movement, or whatever the case might be. And then there's dozens of others that have sprung up. You know, like you know, commend everybody for doing that. Every time that a new group springs up, it takes another piece of the pie away from the work we're trying to do. It splits us up and splinters us even more. I've mentioned to people who've created some of these organizations that if you truly want to be impactful, if you truly want to have impact from coast to coast to coast, similar to the impact that's being had by those who are opposing us, we need to be united truly, and not united only in words and by the slogans of our organizations. Until we do that, we're going to continue to work in silos, and our fight is going to continue to be very difficult. So I urge everybody in our community, in the grassroots community, to really think hard about how we can join forces together, whether it be in BC, in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and really have a strong one voice, and one voice that does action, one voice that does campaigns, one voice that does things. Everybody can bring their expertise into the mill. Otherwise, you know, it's every time you're going to have 4 or 5 different people from different organizations, and it just splits us up. It splits us up from every essence. And I think it's one thing that we can learn from those who are scrolling up and down on the other side is how united they are as compared to how ununited we are. And that's a message that I want to put out there to the grassroots community. And that we need to unite. I don't care what the banner is. I don't care what the name is. I don't care what the slogan is. But we need to have, you know, a real discussion about whether we want to unite as a community and fight this as one, or whether, you know, we want to do what we're doing right now, which is partisan work, right? I'll be in this forest. You'll be in that forest. Sue-Ann will be in another forest. Maybe there'll be a pigeon that will send messages between us. And it's just not effective at the end of the day. So I'll continue doing what I'm doing here in a small world called Winnipeg. We're very impactful here in Winnipeg. We're very strong here in Winnipeg. We don't lay down for anybody. We have a strong Jewish community. We have a strong grassroots community. We have a strong Israeli community. And I urge everybody in Toronto and everywhere to unite together and confront this together, because it's only going to get worse before it gets better. But it will get better if we do the right thing, and we need to do the right thing right now.
Ron, I'm just going to throw one thing in. Sorry, Meyer, we're going on very long.
Yeah,
but I'm going to throw one thing in. The enemy within is the worst. The self-loathing,
absolutely.
the Jewish
100%.
Voices for Peace, and I know a few of them. They're crazy. They're absolutely crazy. And,
Absolutely.
you know,
listen,
we have to counteract their narrative.
The J.J was started directly because of the of the self-loathers, the safe haters who are the biggest threat. And I've said it to Mayor all along. I'm not worried about an Aliyah
Hang on one
Hassad.
sec. We have one more call.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, it's Sam
Hey.
Fishman from Calgary.
Sam Fishman, how you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Okay. You're right around the end. Go ahead. Last call.
I just want to say what a terrific show, and having the content of how positive to be able to speak against the BDS, that they tried to put things over, has been terrific.
Well, thank you.
It couldn't have been done any better, having them tuned in, if they would only be listening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen. You never be. Some of their followers will change their minds, maybe. But we're going to continue and expose the fraud and the hate to the BDS.
And that's what it's all about.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, I want to just I agree with Sue-Ann 110%, that we have to really look closely at those from within who are leading and fueling this campaign against us, because when they can point to a Jew somewhere and say, well, that Jew thinks this, that, the other, therefore it's legitimate, it's okay, our community needs to come out and say, well, that Jew speaks for nobody in our community, maybe for two people, and those people need to be shamed out of our community, because really they're fueling this anti-Semitism at the moment.
Okay, so the doctor in the studio song that's going to uplift us and show us some good Jews that are singing.
Well, I have a
inspiring
couple of
us.
options, but I think since this has gone on so long, I've had a couple of songs up and ready to go with introductions, all that sort of stuff. But I think I'll just have this delightful little couple we've had on before. I mean, from Israel, who actually met in Israel. They both made Aliyah, and they sing Lala Tov. So I'm going to have them sing us Lala Tov, then I'll give you all the last word, and then we'll play the closing comments. I have so many videos ready for tonight, but, we went on and on. So here's a pretty little song.
Night, night.
חיבוק של ירח, כוכב מנשקת מצחך.
Wow.
It's a little bit about them. You can find them, and they gave me permission to use their music, by the way, so we won't have any copyright problems like we've had once before. But find them, listen to them, support them. They're great. They do concerts. They have music out. So anyway, that's my closing comment. I'll let you all get in the last word, and then I'll do the closing end titles. And we look forward to next week. Everyone who's listening, thanks for listening. Share this, enjoy it. And those of you who have rude comments to make, we all love the comic relief.
That's for sure.
It was fun. It was fun. Let me tell you that much.
You could put the comments on a Saturday Night Live skit.
We could definitely we could do that. I'm going to compile. I think next week I'll put together maybe a 5-minute video of the comments and the people that said them, and I'll search social media to find photographs of the people that said them. And see so give me a little time. I'll do a little South Park. We'll do a little cartoon, and look forward to next week. The comments from last week. Okay,
That's going to be
terrific. Want to
terrific.
make a closing comment before we close out the titles?
I'll tell you one thing. My father, was a high-ranking officer in the Israeli army. He was actually the first commander in South Lebanon. He was the first one to actually engage against Yasser Arafat and the PLO. One of his encounters with another officer, and my father was quite large in size. The officer made a comment to my father, similar like how these people make a comment, said, "Look how fat you are. How did the army allow somebody as fat as you into the army?" And my father said to him, "Hey, I can lose weight, but you can't lose your stupidity." So I'm saying the same thing to the people, that are putting all these comments on here. You can make the comments you want to make. We can do whatever, but your stupidity and your comments, you can't change them. and it just shows the level that we have to deal with. And when you deal with stupidity, it's very difficult to overcome it. It's a difficult thing to deal with.
Absolutely.
But Laila Tov, on that note, good night to everybody. This was fun and fabulous. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Aliyah Hassan. Hopefully Firaz was on too. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you guys will put out memes now.